Could ask for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go into public participation, I'd just like to make a comment real quick. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. There is a brighter light at the end of the tunnel, and I think 2021 will be a better year for all of us. Hopefully. Okay, public participation. This portion of the meeting is to allow the public to inform the board regarding its concerns. During Board of Selectmen meetings held via Zoom, persons interested in addressing the board shall do so by submitting written comments to the town manager no later than noon on the day of the board meeting. Comments received will be distributed to the board and read out loud. Please be advised that the individuals addressing concerns will be placed on the board's next regular meeting agenda unless the issue addressed is on an emergency nature. The chairperson or acting chairperson will use his or her discretion as to whether action on any particular issue should be taken at this meeting. Items regarding personnel issues or town employees cannot be discussed in open session. I believe at this point, do we have anybody with public participation?
No, we didn't get any comments.
Although Dan wants to comment here.
I actually have 5 issues I'd like to touch on. Number 1, first and foremost, the most important. On behalf of this board, want to extend our sincere sympathy to our fellow select lady, Mano, whose dad passed away this week. Our sincere condolences to you.
Thank you.
Secondly, I have a question pertaining to the farmers market area. I'd like to know, do we have any guidelines as to the use of this? Is this for public use? Is it? And the reason I'm asking, I have an interest on Saturday, December 19th, to have a small gathering of interested people practicing proper social distancing. Those that want to wear masks, wear masks, but singing a few Christmas carols and having a short Christmas-related gospel message preached by the speaker. I'd like to know if it's permissible to use the farmers market area.
Yeah, so the farmer's market does have some bylaws, and they're part of the application for membership, but our season is closed, so somebody asked to use the farmer's market for that. You know, like Chris Canen had asked a few weeks ago, a month ago, and it was not an issue. The way that the bylaws are set up, it's basically make the request to the town manager. There's no issue there.
Okay, well, with that being said, I'd like it to be public record, and for those that are viewing, you're all invited at 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon to sing a few Christmas carols together, probably to lighten up the tension in the air and to liven up the Christmas spirit, and to listen to a very short message of hope for the incoming year, if we get there.
So I'll open the door.
I can, no,
That's Paul.
that one? No, that one.
No, over here.
Closer. Sorry.
Thirdly, I would like, if possible, to have placed on the next meeting agenda to entertain a personal property tax abatement for the Other Main Cabin Rentals, which you are all well aware that I was the owner. I would like to present paperwork and have it discussed by this board, which is, according to our bylaws, are the only ones that have the authority to undertake these matters. So if possible, I would like that to appear on the agenda for our next meeting. Fourthly, the land surveyor proposal that we voted upon at our last meeting, have we made contact with Surveyor Mike Sear? We have, so this is underway?
I don't know if he started, but he has been given,
Okay,
the go-ahead, and he's supposed to get it done by the end of the year.
He's under contract to have it done before the end of the year.
okay, because the snowmobile season is upon us.
Right.
If any have heard rumors, I spoke with one of the landowners, Mr. Keith Parody, who is presently logging in that area where the snowmobile trail comes in to meet the Clifford Dion property. I spoke with him just prior to our last meeting, and he was very, very cooperative, and just this past week, I heard some very, very negative feedback saying that Mr. Parody had closed the trail since he was logging there, and I knew that he was logging in the lower portion of that parcel, so I went to see Mr. Parody. The existing trail is closed because he is logging right there, but he is opening another trail access through his property, that there will be access through the Keith Parody property for the snowmobile trail. It's just that it will be relocated somewhat, but there will be provision there made. Lastly, at the last Selectmen meeting, I had asked to have placed on the agenda for this meeting an executive session, and I was just wondering why it did not appear on our agenda.
So if I could answer that, we were looking for more information from you regarding what or who you wanted to have placed on the executive session. So we needed that information, and we've tried in a number of directions to try to reach you, and I believe that you already have that request that we needed before we could get this on the agenda. As far as I'm aware right now, there was a discussion with board members, and you knew that we needed that information. So by no means, Dan, are we looking to do anything other than to go forward with this. We're not looking to do anything else. We just need that additional information so we can add it to the next meeting.
So, do you want to put it on next meeting's agenda?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
But we still need that information though.
well, I don't believe that I can divulge that in
And you don't
public.
need to now. You can do that in private. We don't need to know what it is now. Okay?
Okay,
Okay. Does that answer your,
yeah, it sure does.
okay. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Let's see, so let's go on to Article 1. Consider the board meeting minutes of November 24. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to accept them.
I'll second that.
Second. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? Other than the land surveyor? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. To consider the treasurer's warrants, assuming you've all looked at them, so I need a motion there also.
I'll make a motion to accept treasurer's warrants.
Second.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
I know this might be an awkward, I'm just gonna abstain. I haven't been here once this week to look at anything. Just, my name's not on anything yet, cause I just wasn't feeling up to,
Okay.
so. I wanna look at them before I approve anything.
Okay. I think at this time we wanted to move Article 4 up and discuss that at this point.
Yeah, so do we have, for our next presentation, our presentation by our Woodard and Curran is the engineering firm that is, managed our sewer department, upgrades, both with the treatment center upgrades as well as the in-street and off-street pipeline work that's been done over the past, not only the past couple of years as part of this project, but they've been with Madawaska for quite some time working on different segments of sewer for the town of Madawaska. So a lot of work's been done, and we've been through. Many board members have been on since the inception of this project, and so we thought it would be a good opportunity, seeing as that we're sort of on the tail end of the project. We still have work to finish up early next year. But Woodard had offered to maybe do a presentation on our fiscal management plan, our GIS system, and just an overall summary of the project. So with that said, I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to introduce you guys to the team. Brent Bridges is one of the senior people at Woodard and Curran, and I believe all of you have met him at some point or another. Maggie Max have been part of this project from the inception. Shannon is, I believe, one of our newer team members with Woodard and Curran, and she worked specifically, was that on the FSP, or Maggie, or Shannon, or the GIS? Yep. So with that said, I'm going to kick it off to you guys. I'm going to try to share my screen to you. Or do you already have the sharing capability right now? Do you?
Right now I do not.
Okay, so let me see if I can get this right here.
But Gary, I'll talk a little bit while you're doing the sharing the screen,
Okay.
so we don't have awkward silence.
Yeah.
And, only Gary will appreciate my background. Only Gary. You know what that is, Gary?
Oh yes, I do know what that is.
I'm ready, and thank you so much for letting Maggie and Max and Shannon and I share a little bit. We promise it will be crisp. We promise it will not be more than a half an hour. We'll try to even do it a little bit quicker if we can. But,
You okay, Dan?
We are, as Gary said, at the tail end of a very important project for the town. And so it's been a long journey, and I won't bring you back to the very beginning of time, but over the last 10 years at least, to talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments. And just to let anyone who might not know is that Madawaska is a unique town in many ways, but one of the uniqueness is you're a combined sewer overflow community. And what that means, being a CSO community, is when you have large rain events or you have snow melt in the springtime, your sewer system gets overwhelmed. And so the sewer pipes themselves, the pump stations, the treatment plant in the past has been overwhelmed by that excess water. And when you get that excess water in your system, it has no place to go besides mix with the sewage and to go into the river. And so when we started this project 10 years ago, the town had 6 to 10 times a year, they would have an event, that they'd have those rain events or those snow melts that unfortunately there would be some discharge into the river. And so that's the, and you have 2 CSOs that do that, one down near Twin Rivers and one up by the back of Public Works and by the treatment plant, those 2 places that kind of discharge when you have an overflow. So it's been a long, I won't go back to the beginning, but over the last 10 years, and one of the things that the town had to do, and it was asked very strongly by TEP for you to be involved. And the reason it was asked is because the DEP's got a responsibility to make sure that there aren't any combined sewer overflows, there aren't any discharge into river bodies in the state. And so you were forced into action about 10 years ago, and you were forced in that you weren't given a consent order, you weren't given a legal document, and you weren't fined, but you were giving strong words of encouragement, and you really had a working arrangement and a schedule in order to eliminate these discharges into the river. And so, going back from that, and I would say that 10 years ago, if you asked DEP, who are the communities that are the most progressive and the least progressive in the state regarding CSOs, I think you were second from the bottom, which isn't a really great place to be. I won't tell you who the bottom was, because there was one that was not as progressive as you were, but it wasn't a good place to be. And so there was a lot of attention paid to the town to be able to go in and to start doing some work to be able to change that. So the last couple things I'll say before I turn it over to Maggie are, you weren't alone in this. this. And one of the opportunities you took 10 years ago and you've been taking continuously is you've been asking for some help and assistance from funding agencies to be able to help kind of lessen the blow. And USDA, Rural Development, DEP, and Economic Development Administration have been helpful, throughout the last 10 years, and they've come up with grants to be able to pay for more than half of the work that you've had done. And you can only think of what the ratepayers would have had to pay if you hadn't had that opportunity to get that grant money to be able to help you. And so that's the good news. And then in addition to what Maggie and Max and Shannon will talk about is you went through and have done this program. Over time, there have been a couple other things that we've done in assistance as far as sump and pump removal programs, roof drain dyeing programs, to really get a handle on all the things, all the water that's getting into your system that's causing you a problem. And at this point in time, the success you've had over the last 10 years is the discharges are very infrequent, with the goal of them never happening. And so they've gone from 6 to 10 years, 10 per year, to actually not many. And so the hope is that all the improvements that have been done are going to keep you from having any. And so with that, Maggie, I'd like to have you talk about the projects.
Thanks, Brent. Yeah, so we're excited to be here today. I've been working with the town for over the past 10 years on a lot of the work that Brent had reviewed at the beginning of this, and just want to again commend all of the work that the town has done over that time frame. It's been a long journey, but we've had a lot of success with the projects that we've worked on so far. So today the primary focus of this update is really going to be the work around the fiscal sustainability plan that was just completed this year, on really looking towards the future. But we are going to take a chance just to recap some of the work that has been completed since 2010. So Shannon, if you can jump to the next slide. Great. So again, what our presentation looks like today is just an overview of the work that we've started since 2010. And then we're going to really work through the FSP, or the Fiscal Sustainability Plan, and talk a little bit about what the drivers for that project are. We're going to give a little bit of a process overview and capacity review for their treatment facility as it stands now, and then go over some of the capital improvement plan, or CIP, projects that came out of the work from the FSP project that was completed. And then part of the work that we did this year also included a GIS system using Google My Maps. And so we're going to give a very brief high-level overview. There's a lot of detail that we could get into with just that application alone. But just to give all of you a sense of the work that has been completed on your GIS system for your wastewater system, and some of the capabilities that the town has with that. All right, move through. Great, thanks Shannon. So we have a slide on the next one that shows a map of this, but just a little bit of a recap of the projects that have occurred year by year. So, when Brent talked about, getting water out of the system, the primary focus of, the past 10 years have been collection system upgrades. So really looking to target sewer systems that had a lot of infiltration and inflow, or I&I as we call it, in the sewer systems. And there was a lot of work to identify what were the highest priority system or collection system areas in town that needed to be targeted to upgrade and improve. So we focused, as you can see, throughout the years, a lot of the work has been on sewer improvements. And as Brent mentioned, with the grant funding that we were able to get, we were really able to capitalize and hit a large area of sewer system, which has resulted in decreased CSOs that we've seen. Another benefit that you've had with this is that you've been able to really capitalize on the projects that have been occurring, and you were able to work with the water district and also replace several water distribution lines that were in areas where sewers were being replaced. And you also then were able to kind of capitalize on that and do a lot of paving in town as well. So while project funds would pay for the area over the trench of the sewer, the town would then not have to bear that burden of the cost. So, that was something that the town was very smart with and really did a lot of forward thinking on to be able to capitalize and get some paving work completed throughout evaluation as well. You'll see a couple of pump station upgrades that were included as part of the work too. Back in 2013, we did some work on Twin Rivers and Main Pump Station. We did some work at the outfall in 2015, as well as a recent upgrade due to some erosion this year. And then 2019 and 2020 really focused around the treatment facility and a lot of the work that we did at the treatment facility with pollution control, as well as some off-street improvements, areas of the sewer around Main Street, and some additional pump station upgrades at St. David and Main Pump Station. So next slide. So this is one of the outputs from the Google My Map system that we'll see at the end of this presentation. But this really goes to show the area. This is your sewer collection system in town. And the green represents previous to 2010, the last time it was replaced. And so orange represents all of the work that you've gotten to complete since 2010 up until what we're calling the most recent project, which really started in 2018, which you can see those areas really focused on some of the hardest areas to complete, which were all around Main Street and up towards the river. Great, so now we're gonna really jump into the Fiscal Sustainability Plan, or FSP as we call it, and talk a little bit about what are the drivers for a project like this. So really what we look for when we're looking at a FSP document is we want to document, the existing conditions as they are in your wastewater treatment system. So that not only includes the plant, but your pump stations and collection systems, as well as the 2 CSOs that Brent had mentioned. We really want to look to this as a document. So you've done all of this work. So how do we look towards the future? How do we protect your assets going forward? It's really focusing on long-term management, the next 20 years. We really help to work to develop a roadmap for, your future capital projects and planning at this point going forward, so the town knows how to prepare for those upgrades that are going to be required in the future. And then, again, just mentioning this GIS systems, which was part of the FSP document that you're able to utilize to, document your assets within the system. And also it is a requirement of the state revolving fund funding that you received from DEP. So it is a project requirement, but we really tried to work with the town to make this something that you could implement going forward. And then this is just an overview of some of the components that make up the fiscal sustainability plan. So, there's an assessment of the existing conditions at the treatment facility and collection system. There's a flow and load assessment within your treatment at the treatment facility. There's a permit review and assessment, as well as a capacity evaluation. And then ultimately we work through a capital improvement plan and asset management plan. So our data sources, most of the sources, we've been doing work in town for, as we mentioned, the last 10 years. So we've had access and done a lot of work with what we have in town, and what drawings and documents the town already had. We've looked at previous planning studies that we've completed and other consultants have worked on with the town. We've had several meetings and discussions with pollution control and public works staff, as well as several site visits and permit reviews. Great. So I'm going to hand it over now to Max, and we're not going to try to get kind of down it deep into the weeds, but Max is going to pull a few of the high points of our work in the FSP.
Absolutely, thanks, Heidi. One of the things that we were really looking at had an opportunity to look at within the FSP document was the capacity of the town's existing infrastructure to handle some of those peak flows that we see during wet weather or major snowmelt events. And one of the things that Mark and his team at the treatment facility had noticed was the main pump station, which is the first place where all of the flow from the entire collection system comes together. And before being sent to the wastewater treatment facility, that capacity was set for some reason at 2.53 MGD, or 1 million gallons per day. And that correlated with the capacity for the wastewater treatment facility that had been identified in the latest 1999 facility upgrade. Since CSOs had occurred at that pump station and CSO number 2, which is at the Twin Rivers pump station, we worked with the town and the contractor who is doing the wastewater treatment facility upgrade to reprogram the controls to allow the pump stations to run in a lead lag situation, which essentially means both pumps can run at the same time. So for the main pump station, the reprogrammed capacity was approximately 4.75 MGD, so a substantial amount more than what the pump station had previously been able to send to the wastewater treatment facility. So that's helped a lot with those high flow events during rain or snowmelt. Along with the main pump station, we also had to look at the wastewater treatment facility hydraulic capacity to make sure that we weren't going to overload that system with the increased flow. Through some analysis, we were able to determine that the treatment facility actually has a hydraulic capacity of around 5 million gallons per day, which means it wouldn't overflow any tankage or channels, which is really important. But we also looked at treatment capacity of the system and the major unit processes such as the final clarifiers, the chlorine contact tank, and the aeration basins. The treatment capacity is lower. So we have recommended as part of the FSP document that Mark and the team at the wastewater treatment facility do stress tests to actually determine what that treatment capacity will be at the wastewater facility. But so far with the flows that have increased, they haven't had any issues with meeting the permit limits. Next slide, Shannon. Awesome. Kind of the highlight of the FSP document in looking forward is the capital improvement plan. And through that plan, we were able to identify high priority, medium priority, and low priority projects for the town over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. High priority projects we identified as looking at over the next 0 to 5 years. For the wastewater treatment facility, which is what this slide focuses on, we did come up with a few projects that should be on kind of the town's radar moving forward, including membrane roof replacement for the aeration building and the control building, erosion control around the outfall, and replacing the automatic transfer switch for the wastewater treatment facility's generator. Medium priority projects for the wastewater treatment facility, again in the 5 to 10 year range. These projects included replacing the existing membrane roof on the pump gallery, window replacement and general upgrades to the wastewater treatment facility garage, effluent sampler building upgrades, just making sure that remains weather tight into the future, septage tank upgrades including hatch replacement, aeration diffuser replacement, and sludge storage tank number 1 upgrades, which again is around diffuser equipment and just keeping those systems in operation. Continued on medium priority projects, aeration basin upgrades, replacing some of those wear components, gates, valves that are operated frequently, general plant-wide electrical upgrades. As part of the wastewater treatment facility project that's just wrapping up, we really looked at trying to maximize the existing life or the life of the existing equipment. So a lot of the electrical components still had remaining life, so we worked with the town and decided to keep those going for the time being. So that's something that will need to be looked at in a kind of 5 to 10 year range. Wastewater treatment facility boiler upgrades, again, just making sure that the system is operating efficiently, it's getting towards the end of its useful life. And then continued upgrades on PLCs and controls. Low priority projects were those projects that were identified for the next 10 to 20 years out, including a generator replacement at the wastewater treatment facility to provide power for the full facility during a power outage, final clarifier upgrades, chlorine contact tank repair or replacement, just to make sure that that system was sound moving forward as it provides the disinfection for the wastewater before being discharged. New chemical storage tanks in the disinfection room, replacement of some pumps and valves for the septage system, and replacement blower and controls for the septage tank. Moving on to recommended projects for the pump stations, you can see here these are listed as priority high and medium, so 10 to 20 year time frame on these. Excuse me. CSO number 1 structure upgrades replace the deteriorating stormwater and sewer pipes leading into that structure and stabilize the existing structure. Generator replacement at the main pump station, providing larger capacity to meet the needs of the equipment that's there, and ravine erosion control around the main pump station, really to stabilize the riverbank that's approaching the CSO number 1 structure. Next slide, Shannon.
Did it update? Can you see that?
Oh, yep, it did on mine. I was a little delayed. Moving on to the collection system, we had identified some medium priority projects, including a flow meter study, which is really to look at the collection system and evaluate where additional I&I or inflow and infiltration, so that stormwater or groundwater that's getting into the pipes that isn't supposed to be there, which could be leading to the CSO events, really trying to nail down where the rest of that is coming into the system. And then upgrades to known areas of concern for the public works and wastewater treatment facility staff is also included. So along with the capital projects that we had identified as part of the FSP, we also had the opportunity to identify key recurring projects that should be on the town's radar and occur more on a frequency as opposed to a one-time capital cost. These include continued upgrades to the SCADA system, replacing controls equipment that has, like most technology, a shorter useful lifespan.
Okay.
Security upgrades around the SCADA system, and continuing with the yearly inflow and infiltration, again, trying to reduce the amount of groundwater and stormwater that's inside the wastewater collection system. Additional key recurring projects, continuing the efforts of CCTV, which is essentially taking a remote control vehicle and driving it through the sewer pipes to assess the condition via video, and also having the opportunity to clean the sewer pipes. That is a key way of identifying areas where there could be blockages in the sewer or deteriorating pipes that need to be repaired to keep the system. And then pump station force main pigging. One of the things that happens sometimes with pump stations is their force mains can collect debris that will limit the capacity of the station and sending the flow, which could prevent backups in the sewer or potentially CSO events. So pigging the force main is a way of cleaning up that force main. Another area that we looked at in the FSP document was future permit requirements. The current permit requires a post-construction monitoring report, which allows the town the opportunity to update DEP on all of the progress that has been made with reducing CSO events and the treatment facility upgrades. There's also a CSO master plan that will be due, which will remaining CSO abatement steps moving forward. The future permit, which we are expecting for the year 2025, includes the closure of CSO number 2 and also the conversion of CSO number 1 from a licensed CSO to an emergency overflow. So those are real future drivers for continuing the work of removing I&I from the system. And now I'll pass it off to Shannon to discuss the Google My Maps application.
Thanks, Max. So as Maggie was saying before, we needed to have a way to meet that requirement of an asset management plan, and we needed a way that was easy to operate, very user-friendly, and easy to access whenever it was needed. So the Google My Maps GIS application was the best way to do that. So it's just an online, easy-to-use GIS mapping tool that you can use to track, maintain, and change whatever assets for your infrastructure that you're trying to keep track of over the years. And anywhere the user wants to open it, it can be accessed with a phone, a tablet, or a desktop computer or laptop. It's also free, so that's another plus for the My Maps application. The application has plenty of storage space as well, so currently the town's entire wastewater collection system is mapped and included in the account, and there's plenty of capacity for the town to start managing other infrastructure systems such as the water system, stormwater, roads, or streetlights, anything that they want to begin keeping track of. So like I said before, the wastewater system is completely mapped out in this account, and it can be divided up and shown in layers however the user sees fit. So there are some specific numbers on this slide, but basically just showing that the user can make a layer specifically for manholes or for pipes or whatever assets you're trying to look at. So this application allows the user to view the data on a map where you can just kind of zoom around and click on whatever assets you're trying to focus on, or you can look at it in a table of different assets. It's easy to create, delete, edit, move any of your infrastructure that you want on this map. And any information, photos, or documents related to a specific asset can be easily stored in and accessed in the application for future reference. And hard copy maps can easily be printed out and exported to take in the field or to mark up for whenever the user needs it. So I'm going to quickly open the map application. And so here is the map of the town's wastewater treatment system. It's easy to zoom in and zoom out and look at all of the different assets throughout the town. Currently, like Maggie pointed out on that map before, the pipes are laid out in different colors depending on the year that they were installed or replaced. They can also be color-coded by anything else that the user is trying to look at, such as the material the pipe is made out of, the size of the pipe, or any data that the user wants stored relevant to that asset. Layers can also be easily turned on and off, so if we wanted to just focus on the pipes and not look at the manholes, they're easily removed. And if we want to turn them back on, you can zoom in and see that each manhole has its ID for easy identification for whatever you're trying to focus on. If you want to change it or move it, each asset can just be simply clicked on, and the information regarding that asset will come up. For example, the pipe I just clicked on, you can see the pipe length, the street name that it's on, the size, and the material. These data points can easily be changed too. So let's say that pipe was replaced next year, you could just change the name, change the installation year, and that'll be saved in the map automatically. And this map can be opened and closed whenever, and the same data will be saved for access for next time. Assets can be moved easily too. If I just wanted to drag this, say we extended the pipe this way, that's easy to do as well. And like I said before, there's plenty of room in this account for any additional infrastructure systems the town wants to add and map into their account for easy access. So Brent or Maggie will close it out. Let's open PowerPoint.
Thanks, Shannon. Brent,
Hey,
you wanted to add?
One last thing to say is thank you. I've tried to be really crisp on it. The couple things we really want to emphasize as you go through this work is a lot of the focus of our work has been maintaining your license and compliance and reducing CSOs. And when you look at the list of things that Max had come up with, they had, roofing or things like that, and things that Mark thinks that the plan over the next 20 years, he's well able to take care of those kind of things locally as they become more of a problem. And so we really wanted to focus the funds on things that are harder to do locally and harder for him to incorporate into his budgets. And so that's why you see some of those things that are like roofing and things like that, the things that he normally can handle within his operating budget or do over time. And the other reason to have a list like that is we always want to take advantage. The town's been very successful in getting grant funding in the past, and the last thing you want is another big project with another loan. But one of the aspects of doing the work that we did is there's been talk of stimulus, there's been talk of opportunities for funding to come down the line, and all of these projects have been submitted to DEP so that you're in line. So at least you have a plan that developed all these costs, and you have all these costs prioritized. And so anything that comes down the line that the town might want to take advantage of from a program standpoint, you're ready to go. You don't have to scramble around trying to pull something together. You're ready to go, and you're again, not only just in compliance as far as reducing your CSOs, but you've really got a detailed plan of the next 20 years and take advantage of any funding that might come down the road. So thank you.
So you guys is that your presentation? You all wrapped up?
That's the big thank you right there. That's yep.
So I
Because
want
there's a lot more water in that than I've seen this summer. That's for sure.
I do want to thank you guys for the work that you've done on this project. It's been, these are complicated projects that span years, and it's always, like I mentioned when we started the meeting, there's been the boards have changed several times here just since I've been here. And this project, this phase of this project, this 10-year effort, if you will, but this last phase here started back in 2017, and in just in that time period, we've had a lot of board members come and go, and so I think this is a good recap of the project. That we're almost done. We're going to cross the finish line next year on this phase of the project. And there's a lot to do this. There's a lot to get this, a project like this up and going and then finally done. So, and you guys have been good partners all along. So thank you for the presentation, and I think it's going to be helpful for the board and helpful for our team with the asset management plan. The GIS is going to be a good tool for us, and the FSP as well, as a planning document for our operations moving forward. Thank you.
Gary, one more thing. Thanks. I know that I'll also say that Gary and Mark and Kevin all inherited us to a degree. You were already well on board, doing this project when you all started, and I couldn't have asked for better partners as far as Gary. I mean, your support and participation and drive forward. Kevin has been fantastic as far as getting any piece of information and being absolutely not waiting for things to happen, but really helping and assisting. And Mark has been so patient. I mean, if you really realize that he has to work and run the plan while it's being ripped apart, and it is a lot to be able to ask for someone, and he's done a really nice job. And so I know from Maggie and Shannon and Max and I are just so thankful that we had that kind of help and participation. And the last thing I'll say is, when I said that you were next to the last in the state of Maine, if you ask DEP right now as far as how much progress that Madawaska has made and how they're feeling about, what your efforts have been, you're probably in the top 5. You really are, as far as the way that you've attacked this and that you've reduced CSOs, and that, so you're not next to the bottom, you're in the top 5. And so I think that is progress.
Well, great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So is Mark, I'm surprised we didn't have Mark with us here this
Well,
evening.
I think, I talked to Mark about it, and he was, the whole thing was about getting enough people in here, and we didn't have the room.
Yeah,
And so, we had talked about it, and we knew that it wasn't gonna be, a lot of technical stuff, and we just basically wanted to give an overview of the project, and so I know that Mark and Brent and I, we talked about this, and so we're good.
okay.
Mark has seen this stuff before.
So is I mean, there must be the system, I mean, the project is implemented in our system now, and he's working that process?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful, okay. Okay. So, I don't think we have any action on this article. So we're gonna go on to Article 3, other businesses and board member updates. So under other businesses, to consider a request by the police department to transfer reserve funds.
Yeah, so that right there, the police department has their own little server. It's related to, not necessarily the town's network, but more of a law enforcement kind of network server, if you will. And that thing crashed on them, and they needed to get it rebuilt. And so, it wasn't something that he had budgeted for. He was asking to transfer some funds out of their capital reserve account in order to do that. And that amount is $675.
75. Great, so I need a motion.
I make a motion to accept the transfer from the capital reserve account.
Second. Dan. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. To consider the 12 p.m. early closure of the town office for Christmas and New Year's Eve.
Yeah, so this is something that comes up every year. Most towns will close early for New Year's and Christmas Eve. And so we're just gonna formally ask that this board consider that
Yeah.
for the employees.
No, I make a motion that we accept closing the town office for Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve.
Second, yep.
Thank you.
Any good discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. I had on my list, you, Jason, the next item, if you
Yep.
wanna.
So in front of all the board members, I have a proposal here. Basically, at a prior board meeting, we had approved to get some, to enhance our communication platform for the town and see where we can try to extend our capabilities and better inform the public and better provide them with some information. And I've been digging a lot into that and doing a lot of research and working with the developer to try to put a plan together to, help push the town in the right direction. So I've put a proposal here in front of you because of all the work that I've done for this. And the more, I didn't think I would have to be as involved. I thought I could send this to the developer and say, hey, this is what we want, can you go ahead and do it? But I've been doing a lot of liaison work between the board and this developer, and his only means of work right now is he's actually an employee of Simple Computers 101, which is a company that I run. So the proposal here would be his work to develop this enhanced communication platform for the town, not to exceed the amount that we had approved at our last meeting. So
Any discussion or?
Well, I'll make, before we discuss.
Okay, you wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion that, we accept this proposal.
Yep.
And I'll second.
Any other discussion?
I would just like to say that, I've kind of tried to look into this a little bit on my own, to just say, what would this really cost us if we were trying to do this without Jason? And, I mean, I don't know if I'm wrong, but it seems like it would be 4 times more, 5 times more than this. So, it's always touchy, right, when you have a board member that's doing work for the town and whatever. As far as I'm concerned, I really thank you for doing this, because we all were very excited about it, and I think it's a good thing, and I 100% support it, and I appreciate that you're doing something like this, at this type of cost with on your own time, because I know, like, you give a lot more to us even doing this stuff than people realize, so, thanks.
Go ahead, Dan.
I did have a short discussion with Jason earlier today. I know that it doesn't matter what comes up or what we vote on, what we decide, there's always opposition on the streets. From the time that we voted originally on the $5,000, I've had several conversations with different people on the streets, some on both sides. As I shared with Jason earlier today, there does come a time where it's not a granting of favors. I just happen to think that Jason kind of falls into both arenas right now, that he sits on the Board of Selectmen, and we're dealing with an issue that he is involved with as part of his income. And I don't think that we should hold that against Jason in any form or manner. And again, myself being the least computer savvy of this entire bunch, which comes as no surprise. You know, I will support this endeavor, even if I do have reservations on you know, the capabilities of computer technology to further the town itself. But that's the direction the world is traveling in, and I certainly will not oppose it. My only concern is I want to make double sure that we have safeguards in place to protect not only Jason as a selectman or the town involving, you know, business going through a selectman. Again, I just happen to think that Jason just happens to fall between a rock and a hard place at this point in time. And even if I am skeptical of a lot of things, I have no reason to believe that Jason is trying to pull a fast one on anybody or on the town. So, you know, I will support this venture.
I think that it's worthy of mention, if I may, that there's nothing that prohibits a board member from doing work for a town. We've seen that. I've served as a board member in another town, and we had board members that, you know, provided services to the town. And in the proper way to address that is to be transparent, like we're being right now, and for the board member to recuse or abstain from the vote. You know, and I think that basically covers all of the legal requirements for this to happen.
You know, certainly creating an app as Jason is at this moment. I mean, we've certainly discussed this in a number of times, and it's not hard to tell that he is putting hours and hours already, and his cohort too, I'm sure, are doing the same. And once the app comes out, you start to realize really what it entails and how much information has to be put up in there, and how much labor it takes to put this together. So again, I would be in favor also. Certainly at this cost. I mean, you know, you look at other apps and applications where companies are putting them together, and it's 3, 4, 5 times, and sometimes a lot more than that. Okay, anybody else? Are we all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I abstain.
With
Yep, Jason abstaining, I'm sorry. I had an item on there that we had discussed, I guess, in the prior meeting about meeting with the school board. Given the situation as it is today, and realizing that having a meeting together is almost impossible, my suggestion at this point would be more to put a letter together on behalf of the board to the school, and making them aware of some of the issues that we are concerned with. That's open for discussion, so if we have anybody that has anything else to say, if not, I'm going to entertain a motion. that we send the school a letter. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any other discussion about sending a letter to the school about some of the concerns that we have?
I'd like to know who's gonna draft the letter and how we're gonna go about, sharing to make sure everybody's concerns are, you know, we have, if you're gonna do this, if we're not gonna meet as a group, then the letter has to represent
Yeah.
all of us.
I think that, I don't know what your,
What?
sorry, I don't think that as far as timeline goes, I think that if you guys want to, put your thoughts on paper and send them along, and so we can draft something for the board to formally adopt at our next board meeting. So that way it's a unified thing. Everybody would have the opportunity to either send by email or just in writing, or just a note, or just talking with me or whatever. Then I can put that together for you, and then we can the board can sort of ratify that at our next board meeting.
Anything else? Any other discussions? Any other thoughts? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. I guess we're on to Article 5. Town employee years of service recognition.
So, the town, every year recognizes its employees for years of service. This year, we want to recognize our most tenured employee, which recently retired, Debbie Karen, who had 42 years of service with the town of Madawaska. She was at the police department, but she went prior to being at PD, was here at the town office, and I believe Manon worked alongside of her for a long time. So 42 years of dedicated public service it's a big deal.
Yep.
You know, so we want to recognize her for that. Scott Corvos at Public Works has got 20 years of service. Eric Sear with our ambulance department, 20 years of service. Jessica Page with the ambulance department, 10 years of service. Seth Lagasse with our pollution control department, 5 years of service. Ryan Albert with our police department, 5 years of service. And Amy Willett, who just had 5 years of service as of yesterday, and sadly leaving our organization for new endeavors. So, I just want to recognize these employees. They're all receive either pins or certificates, and they also receive what's the word I'm looking for? A little plaque, if you will, for their time that they've given to the town of Madawaska.
Was there any action you needed from us here? Just that we're
Unless
recognizing
you
them?
guys want to make a statement on their behalf, it's up to you. There's no protocol. It's
Yeah.
just
No, I'd like to say something. I mean, you look at the list of these names, and they're all prominent people who have spent a lot of hard work for this town, and this is just a small amount of all the people who work together to keep this town going. So, being the holidays, now's the perfect time to not only thank these people here who put a lot of hard work. I mean, 42 years is quite a long time, but I'd like to personally thank all the town employees for every department, for all the hard work they put into keeping this town running and keeping us on track. So.
And I just
Well
love-
said, well said, yep. Certainly follow suit with that, Jason, well said. Anybody else? Very good. Article 6, to consider the reappointment of 2 planning board members.
So we currently have 2 planning board members that need to be reappointed. They're current members. One is Seth Lagasse, he's currently our planning board chair. And the other one is Mike Moran. So I would entertain, I'm gonna take your job here, but we would definitely need to reappoint these individuals for the good work that they do.
So can I have a motion? So moved. Second?
Second.
Jason? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Article 7, to consider special entertainment permit for the American Legion Post 147.
So this is typically a renewal application, pretty straightforward. Just like any other license, liquor license or special entertainment license, they do come before the local board before they go to the state of Maine. And it needs to be locally executed by the municipal officers, which are you folks.
Yeah, I make a motion to accept the special entertainment purpose.
Second? Yep, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 8, to consider an MDOT agreement pursuant to 29A MRSA subtitle 2382 for the town to issue construction municipal overlimit permits to contractors of the International Bridge project.
So you have a pretty extensive packet here that was provided from MDOT, and in essence, what's being asked of you is for the sections of Bridge Avenue and Mill Street, where the project is going to be for the new International Bridge, that MDOT is basically asking for this authorization. It authorizes you and town officials to issue overlimit permits, overweight permits for those, just those areas. And so this is pretty typical, obviously it's a state law. If you had a chance to go through it and have any questions, I have no concern. With this, and you can see that once it's approved, a contractor who plans on being over a weight limit or on posted roads, during the roads in the spring and stuff like that, they would submit a request for the permit, and we would issue that here. Any questions on that?
No, I need a motion first.
I'll make a motion to
Okay,
accept.
we got a second. Any other comments or
I
questions?
just got a question. Are there, some of the weight limits of some of the pieces and parts that are gonna be coming in, are there any possible ramifications to underground piping, anything of that nature that you know of?
I don't know, I don't know all the specifications on the weights. I know that there's some very large girder beams coming in, could be because it's a steel girder bridge. I think the beams are 11 feet tall, more or less. So you can imagine there's gonna be some tall overweight loads, long loads, if you will, that span from pier to pier, for those bridge components that span from pier to pier. I don't know exactly what those are, but, I think that, this happens in other towns, and it just happens to be happening in our town right now, or starting next year. There is an option to require contractors to obtain a satisfactory bond to cover those costs for damage.
Oh, very good.
I'm told that there are no towns that ask for those, so whether or not we want to do that, that is entirely up to you.
Yeah, I think as long as we're protected, where if they do damage something, that it's brought back to,
Well, they would have to be bonded
right.
They gotta be bonded regardless.
regardless.
Yeah, for the
Okay,
project.
well, if they're bonded, we're safe.
Good.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 9, to consider an offer for the purchase of restaurant equipment of the former Orchids Restaurant. Assets held by the town of Madawaska under their UDAG program.
Alright, so the former Orchids business, the old Fraser Mansion, was a business that had obtained grant funding and also a UDAG loan with the town of Madawaska in the amount of $50,000, the UDAG loan. And part of that loan was to cover operating costs, capital, construction, and stuff like that as part of the grant match. And so, in a UDAG loan, the town takes the, in this instance, the town took a position first on equipment. The real estate, the building, North State has the secure position on that. So it took a while to get through the bankruptcy process, and that worked its way through and got resolved over the course of 2019. So we are in a position right now to be able to dispose of that equipment. Right now, currently, the Orchids, the now closed Orchids business is about $43,000 that we've not collected on that loan. We're never gonna be made whole for that loan. You see in front of you, we went through, Keith and I, late last winter, we went through, North State gave us access to the building, and we went through the building and went through and basically inventoried everything that was in there. Some stuff that we had in our folders for information that we had for assets, and there's things that we did not have, so we went in and we did a full asset inventory of the assets there. And then we worked with some NMDC and some of their sources to get some values on the equipment costs new. So in looking at the equipment that's in there, you know, you can see some of the larger ticket items. There's quite a bit of equipment in there. Cost new is about almost $39,000. And then you also have some of the smaller items in there, from menus to plates to glass and carafes. Worth about $4,200 new. So there are assets there. If it were purchased new, okay, wouldn't even amount to the loan that's there.
Outstanding. So do we have a lien on this?
Yeah, we got a secure.
On all of these items?
We got a secure lien on it doesn't specifically name the items, but it's sort of a blanket lien on the equipment that's in there. That's understood. So, in talking with NNDC, who has a lot of experience, NNDC administers our UDAD program. They also administer a lot of other different loan programs through their own organization. You know, you're lucky to recover 10 cents on the dollar with a loan like this, or for restaurant equipment. So we were trying to get to a point in talking with North State to coordinate a sale there, you know, whether or not they sell theirs and we sell ours at the same time and the business remains intact. But we were always in discussion with North State to try to coordinate a sale of those assets, and we were getting to that point that we're ready. We did receive, I did receive an offer, started with a phone call, and I said, well, you know, formalize it in an email of what you're looking at. They're negotiating with North State separately for the real estate, and they did make an offer of $10,000 for the equipment that's in there, which I think, you know, it's definitely not, we're not going to be made whole on this loan, but I think we'd be doing okay if we were able to recoup that amount of money.
So technically, the loan amount is still roughly how much?
43,500.
So 10,000 on 40, so roughly 25 cents on the dollar is what we're recovering?
Yeah.
I did some research on this after getting the documentation and some of these prices. I would think that, I understand that's the original offer that they provided. I would actually like to see if we can counter offer with maybe a little more than that, because some of this equipment is worth a lot. And I did some searching on everything from Facebook Marketplace to eBay and not what things are going for, but what they've actually last sold for. Mm-hmm. And I think that the equipment there is worth more than $10,000, I feel.
So that equipment is roughly how old now?
Some of that's been there for a while, you know, it's depreciated. Some of it is newer. I don't have all of the specifics for the age of the equipment, so it'd be hard for me to depreciate for you each item. because I don't have all that data. What we did is we went in there, and wherever we could find model numbers and tags, that's how we got the information, and then we just counted there's some of the smaller things. We counted all the pieces and of specific sizes of glasses and plates and all that stuff.
Should we have a motion before we have discussion?
Yep. Can we have a motion to accept Linda's offer of $10,000 for, do you have a second? Discussions?
We're just discussing, right?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Just for discussion.
So I understand your point. I kind of looked at this too, and in another lifetime, I was involved in buying some used equipment at one time, and while yes, I feel like it could be worth a little bit more, I see where we're at, and if they're gonna purchase the building, then what are we gonna do? If she doesn't accept this, okay, we have to pull everything out of there, we have to put the resources together to try to, auction it off piece by piece, or do we, go to Vinny and see if he'll take care of it? I guess how much of our resources do we wanna put after this for a little bit more money? It doesn't mean I don't agree with you, I'm just throwing that out there
And I would agree too. I think
as a
that
discussion.
I would echo your comments to it. I would love to get more, a little bit more for the town, but I do understand that piecemealing that would be, it would take us a long time to be able to do that, and there's some stuff that we're definitely gonna be left holding on to that people were not just gonna be able to sell. And then having to deal with that over how many, the span of months, maybe years, and where are we gonna put the stuff? So, if, it's one of those things that if the sale with North State moves forward quickly, and we're behind the ball a little bit, then we might be asked to take our stuff out of there. Right now, we have an opportunity to kind of basically say, look, we're gonna take this and cut our loss, and then we'll have some finality to this account.
Yep.
Are you at liberty to divulge any more information? Is this an individual looking to set up shop again at the Fraser Mansion for a restaurant, or is this equipment gonna be leaving town?
I don't know, it's Bob and Linda Pelletier, the former owners of that facility, before Orchids. I'm not sure if they want to, transform it into just a residential, or if they want to continue, I don't know. I think
And
that,
are they the individuals looking to purchase the restaurant equipment from the town?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they stated in their email that they plan on turning it into a residential only location.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a little bit confusing to me. They want to buy the equipment, but yet they don't want to use it?
I think their plan, according to this, if they're turning it to residential only, is to probably turn around and sell the equipment themselves.
Any other discussion? Are we all in favor of accepting their bid at $10,000?
I am.
Two opposed, two for, three for?
No,
No, you're opposed?
opposed.
So do it officially, all
All
those
right,
in
then.
favor?
All in favor to accept $10,000?
It was,
Yeah,
Opposed? So,
you're the tiebreaker.
so I'm voting for. Okay.
All right.
Article 10, consider an application for abatement of property taxes for personal property account 76.
So this account 76 is for Evergreen Trading. It is actually an assessor's error in when doing the account information, calculation error. It's nothing by Evergreen. So my recommendation would be that the entry of incorrect values completed by the assessors. It was valued at $43,549, so the assessed value should have been $7,930. And so I would recommend that we we approve this abatement.
Do I have a motion to process this abatement?
I'll motion.
Do we have a second? Any discussion?
My only concern is not against this, but going forward, are there chances that this same assessor made other mistakes that could bite us in the butt later on that we should look?
I mean, there's always things that happen.
Yeah.
We have a lot of accounts,
Okay.
and so sometimes it's a transposition, sometimes it's when there's changes to the accounts. So that's why, that's why there's an abatement process.
Yep.
So I'd like to think that we don't have too many errors.
Yeah.
But, it does happen.
Anyone else? All in favor of accepting this abatement? Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained? One abstention.
Because it's my employer. I guess we're supposed to say, right?
Yep.
Article 11, to consider an emergency medical technician memorandum of understanding between the U.S. Border Patrol, Holton Sector, and the Madawaska Ambulance Service.
So the Eric Sear, our ambulance director, brought this to me. It was basically a memorandum of agreement. The U.S. Border Patrol is interested in providing us free services. They would be on board to provide like EMT services if they were around. Eric approached me on that and he said, really could use some extra. Sometimes we just need an extra people,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're hard to come by. So we saw no issues with it. I asked Eric to basically give us a little write-up, our director, of why he feels this is a good thing for the department and the town. And so you have that with you. I have no issues with this. I would actually encourage you all to support this collaboration.
Do I have a motion to accept this collaboration?
Make a motion to accept.
Do I have a second? Any discussion?
Yeah, I've got something. I read through the agreement, and I read through the information. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for us. And I mean, I hear the police scanner all the time, and the Border Patrol is always there to back up our police department. So anything we can do to help them is great. My only concern is if one of the border agents does something that causes harm to a patient, where does the responsibility fall on that? Will the town be liable for that, or?
I think the agreement spells out that the town, I'm not sure, Jace.
Yeah.
I want to say that, first responders respond
Right.
and they're covered,
Yeah.
For things unfortunate things that happen sometimes. I think there's some language in this agreement that holds each party harmless, if you will.
Right.
But I mean, it's one of those things that it's hard to.
Yeah.
It is hard to foresee. Some things can happen sometimes. But at the same time, I think as a first responder or first responders responding, there is some protections for them because they are trying to do the right thing
Right.
sometimes or all the time. I don't have a very specific answer for you, I guess.
Yeah, it was more of just a
Yeah.
hoping you understood the agreement better than I did. But other than that, I got no issues at all. I think this is a great opportunity.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 12, to consider the request by the New England Police Benevolent Association for Police Local Union 608 contract negotiations.
So as you know, the Madawaska Police Association was disbanded and it became part of the NEPBA, New England Police Benevolent Association, Inc., which is the bargaining union for our police department. So it's time our police department is under sort of a continuing contract. They agreed last year to continue their contract, which is expired, given the COVID challenges in the budget we had last year. But they are looking to kick off negotiations They're giving us notice ahead of our budget process. Currently, the board chair and the town manager are the ones appointed to negotiate with the police association. This is just sort of a notification to you that we're gonna start that process. And if you guys have any questions or concerns or thoughts for us as we take this process forward.
So can I have a motion to move this bargaining agreement forward?
Yeah, I make a motion to move forward.
Second? Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 13, so are we gonna consider the bylaws tonight, or do we wanna table that till next meeting?
I would like to make a motion to table that to the next meeting.
Yep, I second that.
Any discussion about that?
I have not, I think I mentioned it to you guys, cause I talked to you, but, so I want to ask to do this, I've been wanting to for a while. Unfortunately, this week got a little away for me, and this meeting was supposed to be a short one, we didn't have much in it, so this would have been a good time for us to spend a good, half hour going through them and talking it out and saying, okay, should we change this and that? And I don't feel like trying to jam this into the next, 15, 20 minutes, is a good thing. So I would like to propose that we, I myself anyway will highlight some things that I think are an issue that I would like to present to you guys, and if you guys do the same, maybe some of this we can, come up with a little bit of a better working document, before the meeting, so we're not,
Right,
you know what I mean?
we're not going through the whole thing at a meeting.
Yeah, so cause there are a few changes I would, like to. So anyway,
Okay.
that's why I'm making that motion, I don't want to just do this, half, yeah.
Half a ring.
I'm not gonna say half, yeah.
Anybody else? All in favor of tabling this review of the bylaws till our next meeting? Raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Article 14. Manager's report.
So you have in front of you a manager's report that consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 different topics worthy of updating you on. I do want to update you a little bit. You've already had the chance to read this, but I do feel like we need to share it for the record regarding our international bridge project. When this project began, when it was clear that MDOT and GSA was going to move forward with replacing the bridge in the port of entry, that sort of happened back in 2017, right around the time that I started working for the town. And back then, we were forging relationships with the city of Edmundston to be more connected and in sync, and to try to promote our economies collectively, and to work collaboratively together in different ways. And so one of the things that we did back in 2017, and Jason, you have that right below you, to your right, to your left there, is the joint resolution that the city of Edmundston and the town of Madawaska had a joint meeting back then, and had some resolves. They basically joined, the joint resolution was a resolve, and it resolved to do some different things, and one of those or resolves was seeing that the new bridge would be something that would be in place for 75 to 100 years. We wanted to see if we could influence the project in a way that would benefit us economically, and so there was discussion about aesthetic considerations for the bridge. Could it be a sort of a landmark? We wanted the bridge to be useful, so that it would encourage recreational traffic, ATVs and snowmobiles, and so we had our joint resolution, and we've been at the table with, as a stakeholder, through this project, in 2017 and 2018, through many different meetings, pre-Zoom, pre-COVID, a lot of meetings with stakeholders. And so our efforts, you know, they've kind of paid off, you know, and one of the earlier requests was that the bridge have a recreational lane, a dedicated lane, and it was clear that, given the scope of the project and the size and the cost of it, that we were not gonna get a fully dedicated recreational lane. It would have added a lot more weight to the structure, and they would have needed larger piers and all that stuff, and so they were not gonna consider a recreational lane, but we were able to get them to agree to widen the shoulders enough by a foot on each side, plus there's also a sidewalk, that we would be able to have safe passage for snowmobiles and ATVs out of the lanes, if you will. They've agreed to do that. They've kind of put that figure at about $1.4 million to the cost of the project. Okay, so we've worked really hard, City of Madawaska and Edmundston together, for that request, and they've granted that to us. Another aspect of the bridge that we wanted, since we weren't going to get a landmark bridge like over in Bucksport with the observatory, you know, we were really thinking, you know, could this new bridge be a bit of a landmark? Could it have a special name? And that's something that we're going to talk about in the future here, naming the bridge, but so that it could be not only a bridge to move vehicles, but to be something that people would, you know, could relate to and recognize, go take a picture near it, or just that in and of itself could be an economic driver for the communities for the next 7,500 years. And so, you know, we've talked about different things, what we could do to the design of the bridge, but because of the cost of the size of the bridge, it was clear that they weren't going to have any special features on it. But they did agree to do is put 3 flagpoles at the international boundary on the bridge. And so we could have our flag, the American flag, Canadian flag, and the reservations across will have a flag as well. Those flagpoles will be lit. They'll be installed at no cost to the Madawaska or Edmundston, but we do have, we will have to formalize an agreement that we're responsible for, you know, maintaining the flags and bring the flags to half-mast when it's time and those things. So that's something that you're going to see probably in the next 12 months. It's something that we're going to have to work on. The last thing that we asked for on the bridge, as part of the aesthetic components that we tried to influence on the bridge, was aesthetic lighting. Okay, so there is going to be street lights on the bridge, you know, illuminating the bridge, but we thought with this large span of a bridge that's going to be running at an angle, if you will, upstream or downstream, that we would have a side view of that bridge from each side.
Right.
And it's long, it's almost 2,000 feet long. Okay, so we talked about aesthetic lighting. If they could light the underneath of the bridge a certain way so that it would kind of pop, if you will, and that would be recognizable. And so MDOT, that discussion evolved over probably a year, probably more than a year. And MDOT and NBTTI, MDOT's counterpart in New Brunswick, were open-minded through the whole discussion. And I think that they were inclined to support what we were doing, but they said, we don't know if we're going to pay for the cost of the lighting. We sort of had a plan A and a plan B plan on this. You know, if it were indeed that the towns were going to pay for each half of the cost, right, because we're going to see half of it and they're going to see half, or half the bridge is on them and half the bridge, however which way you want to look at it, it was looking like somewhere in the vicinity of a $150,000 project. And so, which would have to be agreed for by both towns, right, both communities. They would light up their side, the side that they see, and we would light up our side, the side that we see. And that would have to pass by both communities. And so it's a bit of a wild card, we didn't know if that was going to be achievable, so what we asked was whether MDOT would consider putting the conduit into the structure, into the concrete, that would allow for that to happen in the future when, you know, if there's a will, 10 years from now, that stuff will be there, that infrastructure will be there. So they did agree to put the conduit in at no expense to the town.
Okay.
But the discussions have been going on for a while now. I'm pleased to report that both the province and the state of Maine, as part of the project, have agreed to pay for the cost of the aesthetic lighting underneath the bridge.
Beautiful.
So that's, you know, significant.
Hmm.
So,
Can we name the bridge?
yeah, so
I wanna name it the Donald Trump.
I thought we were having a serious conversation.
No.
So this is like the lighting that we're looking for?
Yeah, that's a rendering.
That's the lighting down below the bridge?
You know, you do bring that up, and I will go ahead and say that there are provisions for naming bridges. Okay, we have this process here in Maine, in New Brunswick, or in the provinces, if you will, have a different process for naming bridges. Okay, and so that's going to be that's one of the things that we asked for. Is we want to be able to name the bridge something. Okay. And so we have to sort of reconcile those processes, if you will. I think there's going to eventually be have to form somewhat of a working group between the two towns to come up with a name. They have a specific process defined in law on their side on how they got to do that. Here in Maine, the process for naming a bridge, MDOT will call this bridge whatever it is when they construct it, and the town can request to the legislature to rename the bridge. But we're gonna have to come up with a name that we can both agree on, both sides. And so that'll be a future discussion. It doesn't have to be done before 2024 when the new bridge is, until it's built in service. But it'll be something for discussion moving forward.
There might be somebody you like better than Trump by 2024. You never know.
Lamando.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any,
There you go.
so I just wanna say that, you know, these are things that, had we not asked for them, we've not have gotten them. And it's an effort by the communities, both communities. We were able to influence this project to some extent for the betterment of our region. Moving on, just a little update on the sewer project. Woodard and Kerr did a great presentation to get you up to speed. I know Manon had sent me an email last week.
Yeah.
There were some construction going on late in the season here. Piles of dirt at the shopping center. There's some off-street sewer work that's been being done. There's a section of there that we're able to do. If you're not aware, the section of sewer line from the end of Acadia all the way to, I'm not quite sure how far it comes down here on St. Thomas Street. The sewer line is not in the road, it's behind the homes. We call that off-street. And it's shallow. And so Pelletiers did have time to go in and do the section of sewer line from the end of Acadia behind the old shopping center. There's a foundation wall there coming this way, and then down the road that goes into the parking lot. There's going to be some slip line work that's going to need to be done as the sewer line goes underneath the end of Acadia. So that's work that's going to be done next year. And then the other part of that project is going to be coming this way behind the old Spectrum building, behind those homes towards Legion Ave. And that's work that's only going to happen next year. We had issues with freeze-ups and root intrusion and shallow pipes and old, I can't remember what you call it, but it's really old pipe, and we've had a lot of blockages there over the years, and it's getting worse. Town and Chamber Commerce Memorandum of Understanding, we are working on that. I did send a draft to Doug and Sharon at the Chamber, and we're working on some language for that MOU, so that you guys can take a look at it, and the Chamber Board of Directors can take a look at it, and so that we can formalize that, so we are working on that right now as we speak.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yep.
Do you have any idea why they did not do anything for Small Business Day? Like they did similar to what they did in Fort Kent?
I don't.
You know, I was very disappointed that there was nothing done at all. You go to Fort Kent, it was booming there, I just happened to be there. Music playing, people in and out of the store, traffic all over, come here, there's nothing. So the businesses that we do have had to fend in themselves and promote themselves. And to me, the whole point of a chamber is to promote the businesses. And nothing was done at all. So that's a mark against them for me.
We also have to remember though what they did do earlier on this year with that project that we had going on through the town where we were granting.
But that should be a continuous process, not just one.
No, and I understand, and you're very correct in what you're stating today, and so be aware that we understand that
Because all
issue.
she had on her Facebook page was support small businesses. Well, big whoop to do here, nothing was done. And there should have been some promotion, some sort of enticement for these businesses, promote them, however, whether they're part of the chamber or not, they're taxpayers, so they're still funding that chamber. So it needs to be promoted. What we have to promote. I mean, it's important. Because if they grow, other businesses will grow too. You know, I just feel bad. And the crafters this year really had it hard because they had no place to do anything. Because of, through no fault of their own other than COVID, I get it, but.
You know,
still.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, just so you know,
I just feel bad.
I'm aware, we understand,
Okay,
okay?
Alright.
So we're certainly addressing that,
okay.
okay?
I am.
Yep.
So I had a brief conversation with Doug, and my concern with this was to build off of what you said. I have a little concern, you know, because they've met with the chamber a couple of times, and Gary's been kind of placed on this chamber committee or board, and they're coming up with an agreement they're gonna then present to us with no input from us, is how I felt. I felt like, you know, they're saying they wanna drive the chamber this way, and they wanna do this, and they want our support for money, but yet, so I hope that we're a little more involved in the initial plan of like what, I mean, we're 6 months into, we're gonna be starting on a new budget, and I've expressed to you before that if we can go in a direction that I'm comfortable with and we're all comfortable with, I would even say, okay, let's give them more money, but right now, I don't feel like there's been any of the, and COVID, I get it. You know, I just, you keep saying you hear us or you know or you get it, but I still don't see, we could have even had a little drawing that would pull people into the businesses to just sign, you know, a ticket, and the prizes that we're having for house decorating could have been done through the businesses somehow, or you know, I don't know, it's just, I feel like we're very quiet here
And
compared to other communities that we're seeing, and it's disappointing, and, I mean, if there's something we can do to help, then let's.
And two of the new businesses, she hasn't even gone to see them. So that's shameful. They're new businesses in town and the chamber doesn't go greet them. More X's for me.
Again, I guess, you know, I just need to bring up that we are in the planning stages, and it will be presented to this board. And I'm sure that you can address any issues that you want to look at or change, and that's all gonna be considered. I mean, we're not making final decisions here, we're just trying to put something in front of you that makes sense before.
We're just fleshing out what we think are some of the things that we talked about, that, you know, when we went through our budget process and we thought about coming up with some sort of agreement. And that's what we're starting to do. You all are gonna certainly have your time to put something into it. So it's not that we were not trying to include you in that.
No, I know, it's just the direction that you guys are pushing in is not the same direction that we envision, I think, and I'm not sure, we've never, see, like, it's like with the school, right? We had said, oh, we wanted to meet with them, and I was adamant that if we're meeting with the school, we as a board need to make sure we're all on the same page first, so that we're all equally represented in what we're gonna express to the school.
Right.
You know, like, you don't want one person going in there and saying, you don't do this and you do this, and that's a representation of all of us. And so that's all I was feeling like with the chamber, like, you guys met with them at the very beginning, like, I have no idea what direction you gave them. You guys just said, well, let's give them an extra 5 so she can move a different direction, and we still don't have a clear idea of what that is. So that's all. I mean, I know you're working on it. I'm just putting it on the table that, you know,
I do believe, Lori, that we are going to be of the same mind when we get to the end of this. I do believe that this board's thoughts are going to be unanimous in what the chamber direction will be, and it's to promote business and commerce in as many ways as it can. I know a lot of folks today feel like there's many things that she's working on that doesn't necessarily represent the businesses of this town as a whole, at least. But we see that, we understand,
and I don't
and
think
I
this is
understand
not
that.
against the person either. This has nothing to do with who's in that seat or the board there,
Right.
because everybody, they all work hard.
Mhm.
It's just as a community, the chamber has progressed and changed into something, you know, over the years that maybe is not necessarily what we need anymore.
Mhm.
And that's what our MOU is going to be, a guiding document that, you know, will be our measuring tool. Okay, it's going to be for, you know, basically the premise of the MOU is going to say, look, this is what our expectations are, and I think just generally speaking, okay, and you're all going to have a chance to chime in here, but just generally speaking, I think that the MOU explains what our goals are, what our similarities are, what we do, what we've done in the past, what we think we should be doing moving forward, and then it explains how we're going to get there, and it's going to be the basis for future funding requests moving forward. So the language is going to be in there to say, look, this is what, as a town, we're interested in our collaboration with the chamber. Okay, yeah, we made a larger appropriation. We're committing more resources. We know that these are hard times, unprecedented times, but we do want to change what the chamber can do for the town as a whole. Okay, it's from the traditional chamber
Right.
as we know it.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna have a document that's gonna do that now. Yes, true that we are 6 months into our budget, but we just adopted our budget in November. Okay, so timelines are all skewed here. It's gonna be hard to have a measuring stick for the chamber this year, because we executed the budget and the agreement halfway into the budget year, if you will. So there's always room for improvement. They have done some stuff for the town prior to the budget with their boost program, with the gift certificates, with the beautification
But
group.
that came out of here. So for me, that came from here, and you specifically said, let's give it to them to manage to help them, which is good. And I'm not saying that they didn't accomplish anything. I'm just saying if she's an asset, right? She's an asset to us, that if we're gonna I would even put more money into her to say, but do we want this asset using her time to run a coloring contest and not, meeting the business, she's more than that. So that's all. I get it. I just,
And we do.
I don't want this to sound like I'm attacking her or the
We do.
the
I
board.
mean,
It just, she can do so much more. Why can't we let her, you know, or support that.
Mhm.
Well, I'd have to agree with Laurie and Manon. And once again, it has nothing to do with the director. Personally, I feel that the Chamber of Commerce has outlived its days. And as pessimistic as I am, I would have much more optimism towards Jason's program with the app, since that's the way that people move today, is on the internet, social media. My personal experience with specifically New England Sled Dog on social media. The Boost program, coming back to what Laurie was saying, that came out of here. Personally, I think the Economic Development Coordinator could have handled all of that Boost program. It was a one-time event, and like any other business venture, you have to measure it on return on investment. Gary's saying that, you know, how are we gonna measure it this year? We're halfway into the season. Coming back to a comment by Manon, well, Fort Kent, we have to understand Madawaska and Fort Kent, it is not fair to compare the two for the simple reason that we've been a one-horse town here for the last 100 years. All of the economy of Madawaska has been surrounded around the paper mill versus Fort Kent. Fort Kent has 4 or 5 fair-sized payrolls. They have the university, they have the hospital, you have the Daigle and Houghton truck outfit that turns over a big payroll. You have the John Deere, Frank Martin and Sons, and you have quite a few little mom and pop stores in Fort Kent, which I don't think it's a fair comparison, but not to say that we couldn't stir up the economy here in Madawaska, but we will never have the diversity of smaller businesses that Fort Kent has. You know, we get caught with our pants down here in Madawaska, whether we like to face it or not, as far as relying too heavily on the paper mill for our total economy, and we're just 50 years behind the 8 ball. But coming back to the chamber, I really don't think that the chamber can spark anything if we put it on a balance of our investment to our return. And again, it has nothing to do with the management of the Chamber of Commerce. It's just that I believe the Chamber of Commerce has outlived its day.
Anybody else? All right, keep going.
Alright, so moving on, value recycling facility, we are working on our budget, that we're going to be implementing, we'll meet tomorrow. For the last pass at our VRF budget, currently, we're looking at basically a 1 to 4% increase, in Madawaska's, cost, if you will. And that'll be something that's determined tomorrow. I think right now the big driver in this is there's a crane inside the building to load the stuff into the truck. It was installed when the transfer station was built in the early 90s, like 91 or 92, or maybe 93. And so it's had issues over the years of breaking down and causing a lot of downtime. And it's sort of a perennial topic of discussion. Do we tackle the crane this year? Is it time to put a new one in? They're pretty pricey. We're looking at 3 models right now. They range in price from $130,000 to $170,000. And so there's going to be a robust debate on that tomorrow, I'm sure. The VRF board is working as hard as they can to keep costs down. But there is equipment that needs to be replaced from time to time. So we will know more on that after tomorrow. I'll be able to report back to you guys at our next VRF board meeting, sorry. There was some question, there was an inquiry about building permit fees for the National Bridge project. It's a very expensive project. I suspected that MDOT was probably exempt from permitting, local permitting and fees, and it is true that they are. And so I was able to talk to the program manager and try to get some supporting information for that. The code enforcement officer had been contacted by a contractor and who plans to bid on the job. And I know, I think you had a discussion about that as well, so they are exempt from permitting fees. So that's sort of, I wanted to give you an update on that.
With that, real quick, Gary, I know we've talked about permitting fees quite often, and I know one of our plans was to meet to discuss the whole permitting process, so
Yeah.
if we can keep that on our minds. Doesn't have to be the next agenda, but
I was gonna say the same thing.
yeah,
Just the 15,000 requirement for a permit
yeah. Well,
is not cutting it, because people are doing.
People are just doing their own thing.
You know, either they do it
Yep.
and not pay for a fee, or just apply so we know what they're doing,
well,
cause.
yeah,
I think that there was a lot of interest a handful of years ago to try to streamline and then, you know, the permits and create people who want to incentivize building.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of loosen up a little bit and on the restrictions, and so the board back then agreed to basically say no permits for projects under $15,000, and that, I think it's a great thought, I think, but it did pose some concerns for us.
yeah,
Two ways. Number one, sometimes a permit application would be an indication to the code enforcement officer that there might be a code issue.
right. And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm not worried about going out there and collecting money. I'm worried about things that I have seen where somebody put all kinds of work to make, and sometimes it looks great, but then you realize you got to take that all down because it's illegal. You can't do that, you know. And I've seen that in town a couple of times. And adjusting this process, not to say to charge a fee, but to bring it to where you need a permit so that we can at least, you know, identify work that's going on and make sure it passes inspection.
No, and I would agree with that 100%. I don't think we need to be collecting fees for the first $15,000 of value. I think we can adjust our rate schedule to show that,
Right.
our fee schedule. But I think, you know, like getting back to the issue of whether or not a project would meet code. If somebody, you know, innocently did a project and they didn't understand that there was gonna be a setback issue or a code issue,
Right.
you know, the code enforcement officer would have the opportunity to say, well, you know, you're gonna have to do this or do that a little differently.
Yeah.
They're gonna go full bore, and then after the fact find out that what they have there is non-compliant, and I don't think that's doing them any service, so
Right.
I think that we need to look at that way. The other thing about permitting is that's how our assessor knows that there's work that needs to be checked to see if there's
Right.
value added to the property.
Yep.
And without that permit for those smaller projects, it doesn't necessarily always mean that somebody pulls a $15,000 permit, that there's gonna be $15,000 of additional value.
Right.
If you're replacing siding and windows, it's not gonna be worth much different.
Yeah.
But if you're putting on an addition, well, that's an addition.
Yeah.
And so I think that we do need to revisit that.
So why can we not put that on the agenda for the next meeting?
We can, I wanna take a look at the ordinance a little bit to make sure that permitting fees is not something that needs to be, that's incorporated into the ordinance, that those are kinda set there. And I wanna make sure that, you all have I wanna make sure that I understand who exactly has the authority to set fees before we go ahead and start setting fees.
Yep.
So I just wanted to try to get some information in line for you. We can start taking a look at that, in our next meetings.
Okay.
Town clerk position, as you all know, Amy Willett, our town clerk, has been with us for 5 years, is moving on. She's gonna start working at the registry of deeds. And so what we've done is we've posted the job in-house, as per policy. And so we're gonna consider any applications that we have from individuals, inside, the organization, and to determine if we can fill it there, and then if that happens, then, you know, there's opening up of positions, if you will, and we'll end up having to advertise for a position, so no decisions have been made yet on that. But it is conceivable that if we don't make a decision on the clerk, before Amy leaves, we will have to install somebody as a clerk, at least in the interim,
Right.
because that's an official capacity that needs to be filled. And so I'm just putting you on notice for that.
Do we have any interested parties so far internally, or?
Yeah, we got some people kicking tires.
Good.
Yeah. Public Works, work going on over there, the heating system, I believe the heating system, repairs have been done. They were done last week. And so I haven't had a chance to talk to Kevin yet this week to see how that's working, but that's good. And the replacement of the last overhead door in the bus bay is scheduled for the third week of January. It's about $3,800. The school had agreed to pay $3,000. Before we even had an estimate, they said, you know, we do have some funds that we can pull from, and they said, you know, here's $3,000 to put towards that project. So that's what's going on with that.
Okay.
Do I have another page here that I'm missing?
Nope, well, I don't have anything else.
Is that it?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm on my second.
Yep.
So that's all I have for my manager's report. Blue Sky Hotel, it's not on here, but that project went really, really well. They got it done in 3 days.
I was impressed.
Some very specialized equipment that came from Rhode Island. For people who don't know, J.R. Vinagro, they are an outside business, but they are sort of setting roots locally here. The owner has a property in Senegat, and they are also part of the group that's putting in a housing project up on 16th Ave, up towards above Dion Avenue.
Yep.
And so they do have a presence in town. They're starting to have a presence in town, and they did a fantastic job for the town. The owner was there the whole time. This is a big company, and the owner was there the whole time. And I actually saw him pushing the broom on the street, keeping things clean and hosing things down. And so I want to, you know, just say that kudos to them for the job that they did, keeping the project safe, not ruining any other properties that, you know, in a tight spot.
Yep.
Nobody got hurt. So I'm pleased with how it went.
Very good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Pigeons aren't happy, but.
Yeah, pigeons are all over the place right now, wondering where we're going. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
There is a question pertaining to the taking down of the structure. I received a phone call about a fuel tank, an underground fuel tank that serviced the Blue Sky Hotel, that has not been removed.
We don't know of
Pardon?
we weren't aware of a tank there, Dan.
No, I know, but is that some, the problem lies that from the story that I received from the telephone conversation, is that the tank was put in underground over a gentleman's handshake, but that the oil tank is not on the Blue Sky Hotel property, but right on the line.
Which side?
Would be the west side. So I don't know. I asked the gentleman, to your knowledge, is there any fuel in the tank? He said when the tank was abandoned, the fuel gauge registered empty. But he said it is a metal tank and it has some serious time to it. So there will be, you know, eventually it will collapse. How much of a hole it would create is not devastating, but is it our responsibility, seeing that it is connected to one of our projects? Is it something that should be looked into, or just kind of forget about it?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we can look into what the statutory requirements are, you know, from this, see if there's any concerns there.
I don't know, I just wanted to inform you people about it.
Yep.
Seeing that it came my way, and I promised to
Yep.
bring it to your attention.
Okay.
It's all-
Anything else?
it's
I
all
need a
have.
motion to adjourn then.
Unless anybody else has something, but,
What?
yeah, unless somebody else has something, but I'm all set.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a
Are
second?
we talking about another meeting?
Yep.
Before we adjourn or after?
Yeah. What would you like?
I do want to
I don't have my phone with me.
remind everybody, I need signatures before y'all leave. So, I have a bunch of stuff here.
Can we, since we're talking about a meeting, instead of waiting till the last minute, could we pretend that we have to go to Zoom for the next meeting? And just be ready for it in case that comes our way, because I know that Dan doesn't have access, and I think you
I don't, I've never had Zoom.
don't, well, but you
But
have
I
a
can.
computer.
Oh, I have a computer, yes, yes.
So, could we
So
just
I-
keep that in our mind so that we're not like the day of the meeting saying, oh, we have to go to Zoom because we can't meet in person anymore, and then we're scrambling to try to figure out, I was wondering, just a thought, and I don't know how you're feeling about it, but the police department is always staffed, right? So like this time of night, would there be an office there with a computer that we could set him up on, that, you know, the officer could just let Dan in and out, and, or do you have another?
They won't let me
They won't
out.
let you out, huh?
Yeah.
And, cause if we do Zoom, are you gonna sit, do you usually sit in here, at your office here, or you do that from home?
No, I do it here.
Here. Oh, so you could set Dan up in a room here somewhere.
You sit in the corner there. Little Jack Horner.
Can anybody be in a public building without a mask today with the mandate, or, and how long will that mandate last? I mean, but anyway, I mean, what can we say about that?
Well, the mandate is the mandate, and
Yeah.
the onus is on whoever owns the building, if it's a store or municipality or wherever, the onus is on on them now to require masks, and if they don't, they're subject to a fine. Whether or not that happens, that's another matter. So, I guess, you know, I would agree with Lori that we need to be at the ready for, like a plan B, you know? if-
Yeah, that way if that morning you say we have to go to Zoom, like we're not all
Yeah.
scrambling, cause I know we had conversations, all of us back and
Sure.
forth today, like,
Yep.
you know,
As far as the Zoom goes, you don't need any software, you just need to
Yeah,
email.
she told me just.
But you need to have a mic, a camera and a mic
Mike, I don't have a mic.
You probably
on
do.
your computer.
I don't know, I inherited it from my aunt, so I'd have to check my stuff. It's new, it's a
So-
newer laptop. so-
If it's
So
a
that's
laptop, you've got one if
I
it's a
got one,
laptop.
okay.
That's pretty much all you need, is a camera and a mic. And
Okay.
probably, you know, it would probably be good to try to do, like when we first started the Zooms last year, we did a lot of dry runs, if you will, make sure that we were able to connect and stuff like that. And so I know that, you know, prior to Selectman Dave Moran had some issues. He brought in a laptop or two to try to get me to work with, and we had issues, and we used the iPad, and that didn't work too good, and we ended up using his phone, and so you could do it right on your smartphone too. It's small though, but I mean, it doesn't change. We'll see, if you're using your smartphone, we will see, and you just prop it up, we will see you like we would on a laptop. So,
But it's on the receiving end that's an issue. It's on the other end, right?
yeah,
He has a hard
I tried
time.
to do it on the phone the
Right.
first time, and you
Yeah.
don't, it's so small, you don't,
the Zoom meeting also has a call-in number, so if you're not necessarily want to be on the video, it's a call-in number, so like Jason pushes the live stream of the Zoom meeting, so if you call in, rather than calling with the town's number and put it on the intercom, it would come through the Zoom feed, if you will. So if anybody could call in a landline or a smartphone and participate via the phone call, it will be part of the Zoom meeting. Excuse me. That's an option. You can see it in here. It's tight. You know, I originally thought we could have 4 people up here, just leave that chair vacant and skip these 2, but it was, in order to get our 6 feet, we could only be 3, and then spacing everybody out. You know, if WWO was here, we'd be at max capacity and maybe sticking people in the hall for 1 or 2 more, so it's tough. Public participation, I think, is going to be this way for a while. And as far as the board meeting via Zoom or via some here and some via Zoom, I think Jason and I are gonna have to scramble. I was scrambling a little bit this morning because I thought maybe 1 or 2 board members might participate via Zoom, and then I was thinking, how is that gonna happen with my laptop? You know, and you know, you not being able to see things, and so Jason, I'm sure we can
Yeah.
troubleshoot that for us. So long story short, we do have some of the board member iPads that a lot of you haven't really opted not to use.
Mhm.
You could use those for.
Oh, there's a thought.
For Zoom.
Well, I'm good, I wanna make sure, like you said, you were scrambling a little bit this morning. Let's not wait till we're scrambling the morning of, let's,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, maybe you, I don't know if you wanna come in here and work with him to figure out what you're gonna do, or are you just gonna call in? Cause we want you at the meetings, so I know you don't have,
Well, it's just setting this up, you're talking to the wrong guy.
well, I know, but you
If
have
your chainsaws
to,
not working, I can help you.
you have to kinda tell us what you want too there, like, what do you?
No, I'm ready, willing, and able to participate in any form or manner. You know, but I'll need technical advice and assistance.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah,
do you
that's
have
fine.
internet at home, Dan?
No,
You don't? Do you have a location you can go that has internet?
No.
No. That's,
No, that's why I was saying, like, the police department
the issue with
office
that
or
though is,
here in
with the
our
governor's
office.
new mandate, if
We
you're in a
have no
public building, you
access.
have to wear a mask.
Dino Road has no
If he's
access to
the only one in
internet
the room.
service.
Doesn't matter.
But you
That's
do,
the governor's
but you
mandate.
do have, you have a smartphone? Is your phone a flip or a smartphone?
It's a smartphone, but it's not, no,
Not
I
too
won't
smart.
say it. I was gonna say it's a user we're concerned about.
It's
So
like
there's also-
who it belongs to,
There's
right?
also there's also the call-in option too, you know, and so,
Are you comfortable with that, just calling in from your landline? Being on the phone?
Calling in and,
Well, they'd give you a phone number to call in and you'd be part of our meeting, but you'd be over the phone. We would see each other on video, we wouldn't see you.
you don't need to see me, all you need to do is hear me and listen.
We hear you, Dave.
No, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I'm okay with anything.
Well, that might help for the short term anyway.
so what I would say is, and I agree with Lori 100%, is we do some practice runs early on and get all the technical glitches out of the way.
Yeah.
Figure out who's gonna be doing where and whatnot, and try it out, so that we're not kind of scrambling during a board meeting,
Right.
getting things going.
Could he not connect a laptop or something to his phone?
No.
US Cellular would,
Hotspot.
He could, but it'd be tough with the service.
cause we know, like, I feel like, you know, it's coming. I mean, we're gonna get hit, and one or two of us are bound to either end up in quarantine because somebody else got, you know, and we're not necessarily sick, but we still wanna be part of the meeting, so I'd just like to be ready for that, you know? If Jason gets told to stay home, then we're all in trouble.
You tell me all the time to stay home. No.
No, it's just one of those things, you just need to get through this next.
Might as well brace ourselves because over the next 2 years, it's forecasted that 90% of the population will actually have the COVID-19 virus. But some will show symptoms, others will not, different levels of reaction. But 90% of the population in this country within the next 2 years is going to contract the COVID-19 virus.
well, I'm hoping that vaccine's gonna find its way here soon.
Well, that's a whole different, if people want that vaccine, that's up to them. There's people in Australia right now that took the vaccine last week, that this week are testing positive to HIV.
Haven't heard that. Okay, so I think we had the motion, right? We have a motion to adjourn. Did we have a second? We have a second?
We just need to talk about our next date for a board meeting.
Yep. So what is the next date again? We're talking January.
January 5th is kind of
Early.
I think that,
it's early, but it puts 3 weeks between us and now.
I don't have my phone.
I think I'd be okay with the 12th. That'd be fine. I'm open the 5th too. 12th is okay.
I would think the 12th for me, I mean,
Okay.
I agree.
Jason, are we good?
Yeah, that's fine.
12?
with me.
Same time?
Yeah.
All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
All right, signatures. Let me,